Hey, Brittany.
Hi, Cassie.
Hey, Snarkers. Welcome back to the Snarking Lot. Brittany, first, how are you doing?
Okay. How about you?
I am sufficient, as usual. Just peachy. All right. But this is a big night because it's guest number two. Do you wanna take it away with a little introduction of our guest? We're so excited to be chatting with Nick, who we happen to know through our childhood and adolescence, and we've stayed connected with over time. He is a veteran, a husband, a father, and a current local public servant on a local level as a village president of the community where we grew up. So, with that, Brittany, do you want to give a little more background on any of the fun hot takes as to how we know Nick? I'm thinking mostly of trombones, but take it away.
Heck yes. So yes, we know Nick from before on this podcast. We're from a small town. So we've been together in school with Nick for pretty much all of our years, all the way through from kindergarten up to high school. And that meant a lot of classes, a lot of activities. So the big one, as Cassie just mentioned, being in band, a lot of good memories. Nick played trombone, Cassie never woodwind. So all kind of the same group. And now, as Cassie mentioned, serving as a village president and a local leader. So with that, Nick, welcome to the Snarking Lot. What are your there?
I really appreciate you guys extending the invitation and spending the time to have this conversation. And it's really great. People you grew up with and maybe haven't talked to in a while. So it's good to be here.
Heck yeah.
Excellent. So
We're excited. We're excited. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. This is like your guest number two. So you're like super important, is what this means, is what we're trying to say. Yeah, clapping.
Oh,
Woo
goodness.
woo. Yeah,
Too,
we love
too
it.
kind, too kind.
We love it. All right, Brittany, as we do on this podcast, we feel pretty passionately about mental health equity. So we do a quick mental health check. So, Brittany, first take it away. How are you doing on your mental health today or this week or since we last talked?
I'm okay. We're just we could be better, but we're okay. We're existing. So how about you, Cassie?
How am I? As
Yeah.
I mentioned at the beginning, I'm sufficient. Uh, period. It's all good. I need to exercise more. Been kind of shying away from that just due to kind of work-life balance issues, but we'll get back there. So we're okay. We're okay. We're always excited about the snarking lot though. And so with that, Nick,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on the mental health check?
Hmm. I'm going to say I am willfully well. How about that?
Ooh,
Good one.
marking that down in
Sounds like a
Maybe a little
quotes.
exhausted.
so I might say willfully well after I've watered it.
Nice.
Awesome.
It's a
There you
bit of
go.
a tangent, I suppose, but it is interesting how plants can get a little bit of water in them, right? And will actually physically work up if they are dry.
Yeah, I got some over there that tend to just go, and I'm like, oh, sorry, I gotta water that. I come back in an hour, and they're like, all right, it's like we never left. And I'm like, okay, I like here. It's fine. You're fine.
I love it. I love it. Okay, Nick, so I mentioned in the beginning, you are a military veteran.
Mhm.
We graduated from high school together. You went
Yeah.
into the military. Um, so you want to just give us a little background on your post-high school journey, like where you've been and like where you're at now in terms of your life and your career?
All right, let's do it. So, when I graduated high school, I think I finished with something like a 1.8 GPA. It was by the skin of my teeth. And the Air Force didn't want to talk to me for a while. And so I took off with my uncle who lived in Fairbanks. And over the course of a year, and also after Sundays, all that stuff, lost 30 pounds, got into the Air Force. Don't worry, guys, I gained that back. Unfortunately, all of it and then some these days. But then I served 4 years in active duty. Initially, was going to be a SEER specialist. Had a good time getting through the courses there, and I did get invited to go to Fairdays or not Fairchild Air Force Base, forgive me, up by Spokane rather. And I decided to take the door number 2, offered me the ability to be air. So I ended up having the pleasure of being able to fly as a loadmaster and served in that role in 2008, 2009, and then was a drilling reservist out of Minneapolis for a couple of years, and then was on inactive reserve for 2, so 8 years total. And it went by crazy. After that, I chased my best friend from high school's little sister down. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? She told me no twice. No, 3 times. That was December 2006, I think. And I guess what, almost 18 years later, we've got 2 kids, and we both graduated from Eau Claire. It was a pretty fun time. And we are back in Blanchardville, which it was never going to happen when I first left. So that's it. That's post high school, I suppose, at the high level. And I've been in IT ever since I got back, and I'm kicking myself sometimes for the degree because I could have gone into accounting, and my grandma straight, so I could have opened up straight crooks accounting, but there's no do-overs. So here we are.
Here you are. Well, that's awesome. So then the next, I feel, logical question is, like, when did you get on the village board, your village president, and most importantly, excuse my language, how in the hell and why did you decide to run for local government, respectfully speaking?
You mean the $100 a month wasn't exactly the the big win? Yeah,
Exactly.
no.
Yeah.
I, I back in because we moved back into the village proper, and I saw a need. There was almost no public participation, and even today, while it's up quite a bit now, even today, committee meeting, village board meeting, almost nobody's there ever. And while your hands are tied behind your back most of the time, trying to serve at the local level, critical decisions are passed through that panel of neighbors all the time. And that's all that a village board or a city council is. It's just people that live there and pay taxes there. And you're tasked with a wide variety of interesting situations and mandates with next to nothing to work with. So I jumped back in just because I like pain. I don't know.
You are a glutton for punishment, is what you're trying to say? Is that part of it, apparently?
Oh, yeah, I think. No, I just something about having enlisted, served, and coming back. Maybe it has to do with trying to be IT as well and trying to fix things or make things better for folks. If you're going to be here, try and pitch. That's it.
I like that. If you're going to be here, try to fix it. So with that in mind, like, what do you like? Was there any particular issue, and you like level of detail maybe doesn't matter, but any particular issue
Yeah.
or thing you saw that was like, this is it, I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm gonna run and I'm gonna try to be that person.
Oh boy. 2018 feels like so long ago. That's pre-COVID times.
Yeah.
I can't remember anything specific. I think we were doing a multi-million-dollar USDA rural development project, and I went to a couple board meetings, and when I listened in, I just thought, where's the questions? Where's the participation? There's nobody here as much that was up there on the board, and thought I could make a difference. And I suppose really now, having done this for a few years, I you know, I wasn't joking I said that you have to try and make things work with next to nothing. In the 1920s, I think it was 85% was collected, stayed local, whether that's a township, a village, or a city. Today, it's less than 22%. And yet, when you think about what you would expect from a village government, your sidewalks, all that kind of stuff, while the costs have gone up, look at the change in where those tax dollars are going. It's just absolutely inspect these little communities to keep things going with, again, next to nothing to work with. And yet, if you want to, there is no level of government easier to get into than the local. And if you want to make a change, it probably does start local. So as cathartic as it might feel to scream at the screen every once in a while, yeah, at the end of the day, throw your time in. That's what I say. Try, even if it's not to serve on a particular committee or a board, just go to a couple of at least the budget meeting. If nothing else, go to that one and ask questions. So yeah, that's what I'd say there. There were some alcohol problems, I think, locally that really maybe tipped me over the edge, but I'll leave those be.
That's fair.
So yeah, I think when we talked about the outlining at that early affinity for politics, maybe, yeah. So sometimes things stick, right? And I think, oh boy, I was working on Eagle Scout project or something at the time, and I came down to a board meeting at that time, and I forget all who was on the board, but I remember thinking that drive and leadership at my scout council that I saw downtown. And I'm not judging those folks. Maybe it was a bad night, whatever. I don't know. But it did kind of stick with me. So I wanted to shake things up a bit.
Well, you and I, Nick, personally, we were in the same high school class. And at the time, we were both pretty politically spicy on different areas of the spectrum, as we'll say. And we were voted in our yearbook that we would be the most likely to become president. And there's a picture of us to prove it. And I think it's funny because only one of us has literally accomplished the president title. Literally you. So here you are. But
Village. It's village.
Yeah, no, it's village, but it's a president. Just leave it out. Just be like, I'm a president. But what I find interesting about that is what you're alluding to is like, do you feel like your military service and kind of just an early affinity for civic related topics has like translated into your current life, you know?
Yeah, I know, right. There's a ton of different governments all throughout the world, and especially throughout history. Allegedly, ours provides the most amount of freedom and flexibility for people to go achieve their dreams. And if that's the case, let's say it's not even number category. How could you exist here and not try and give back somehow? And maybe the 8 years in service was enough. I don't know. But for me, I just keep going. I'll just keep doing it probably until I can't anymore. And I think when I'm done on the board and I am on my last term, I'm not running again. Maybe I'll join the fire department or EMS. We'll see.
I think that's what's interesting though, as you talked about, like when you graduated, I think for another part of your life, you were like, I never, done with Blanchardville, never gonna do it. And so like, if you could go back and tell 18-year-old Nick, hey, guess what? Someday down the line, you're going to come back here and you're going to be village president. Like, what did you have that conversation with 18-year-old Nick? How do you think 18-year-old Nick would have reacted to that?
Imagine it would be a lot like talking to what I imagine a Charlottesville protester or an Antifa member would be. Somebody they know it. If you don't agree, you're wrong. And it would be difficult. I don't think I'd enjoy the conversation very much. I had to go get humbled. The Air Force took care of that right quick. But when combined with what I saw, whether it was even fairly benign things overseas, talking to a person who worked on the base in, say, Iraq in 2008, finding out that, you know, for the country that they were from, a month is crazy money, but to get there, they took out a loan for $4,500 to get there in the first place. So for the first 6 months or whatever, back that debt, and then to find out kids and stuff like that back home, and they're there for 4 years. That doesn't something there. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff where for me, a little part of me died, I think, recognizing that what I had grown up on, believing, if you will, and by the way, he's still my favorite Marvel character, America, Champions of Freedom, that kind of stuff, was a beautiful image to have. But like the conversation in Adventures Chronicles of Narnia and in that area, where I think it was, gosh, what was his name? Petalfoot, something like that. And the Green Witch was telling Melody, you know, your idea about, I think it was Aslan or the other characters and whatnot, and like that image being up there in the sunlight and all that. That's not the retort to say, well, maybe it isn't, but working towards that and holding on to that is better than what I'm being faced with over here. So I that direction. Because what I saw, what I've heard, and then when you look at some of the stuff that we get ourselves entangled into, no, we're arguably maybe the best option, but champions of freedom and justice and kindness and all that stuff, no, not really. And that pushing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's an eye opener, or it's just kind of, it's to have that whole kind of rug pulled out from under you situation, because you grow up not necessarily in a bubble, believing something and having
Oh,
that,
it's a bubble.
well,
You're right. No, it's legit. That's a good
variations.
call.
Everybody kind of does. That's why I'm like, travel, get out, see the world, if for nothing else, then talk to people than you and
Yep.
start to learn some things. But yeah, I admit it is quite jarring when you start to see stuff from people, you know, even like in another town, doesn't even have to be, we're not talking another country, whatever, and their perspective or how like their view on things, or you start to see, oh yeah, maybe the facade of things that are told all around us everywhere might not always be quite as true as we thought, or it might be kind of
Yeah.
complicated, it might be kind of messy.
Messy. That's a good description of it. Absolutely.
My diplomatic word for it. Messy.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the word messy. Nick, I'm curious if you think, so this is like two-part question, like if there's any asset you think our particular generation has in terms of what they can bring to the table in terms of being a public servant, local or otherwise. So that's part number one. But part two, like, do you think that your particular military service at that moment in time in America, like with the wars that you were serving in, like had us any particular influence on it? And I can say that again if like I know like I might be cutting out a little bit.
Yeah, I
So
suppose so.
yeah, so like do you think that like generationally there's
Lost
anything you need?
entirely the first part, but I heard the second part.
Yeah, like and I'm mostly curious
You know,
too if there's
every
any
generation faces some. The internet is.
keep going. Keep going.
I think what she was going to ask is kind of, yeah, do you think that your view of things or government was shaped by the time period that you were in the military with what was going on in the world with the conflicts sees, you know, that there might have been generational differences, and wars have been frequent throughout, but depending on when you get in, there are different times in history when there's been active wars versus time period you got in, has influenced kind of your thoughts and things you were just discussing.
because of the fact that there was an, active conflict, right? There was war that was occurring. Absolutely. But I don't know that that in and of itself is the, it's hard to break that one up a little bit. It's like, yeah, I had to go overseas. If we weren't at war at the time, the US does do a lot of humanitarian stuff throughout the world. Not always just for face value. Sometimes it's so that we can get a lease on a base overseas and have footing in case we need to get involved, type of thing. So I think I still would have been able to go out and about, but maybe the folks that I talked to wouldn't have been in such situations where they were going to be so open. I don't know. Yeah, actually, yeah, I suppose it did because, a lot of dignitaries were stopping over as well. Talked to John McCain in the back of a plane once. That was awesome. And I don't think that those folks would have just been going around if we were not doing anything but like humanitarian missions and that kind of stuff. Conveniently, darkly, there were some that would come over just real briefly so that they could cross into the airspace, and then all their stuff was tax free for like that month and then go home. Whereas say there's like the governor of New Mexico at the time was like that. Whereas McCain actually like stopped, took his bags and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, no, I think the word, yeah, I suppose did shape it. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer.
That's good. We like detail. We like it.
Yeah.
Love detail.
Talking to McCain was wild. Absolutely wild. Yeah. Last major candidate I voted for with a clear conscience. I'll put it that way. How about that?
Mark it down. I'm marking it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what government service has been like for you then from when you started? I mean, imagine too, has it lived up to what you thought it would be when you first decided to run, or, I imagine there's been some challenges or things that, in no way you were prepared for in 2018, but what's it been like kind of overall? Challenges, the good, the bad, everything.
Mm-hmm. In a few words, I'd say it's impactful, frustrating, rewarding, exhausting, but critical. There are places, whether Moscow used to be its own village, now it's a township, right? That's their post office and all that stuff. Like things come and go. It becomes easy to become comfortable and complacent with the idea that this place is better. That is not the case, especially where things have been so savagely curtailed in terms of flexibility of meeting challenges. And I did not expect to have to temporarily shut down a PD. I didn't expect to have an opportunity to speak in front of the Senate on behalf of, as a subcommittee, both for veterans, but also for the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, participating in the budget conversations about, frankly, keeping Milwaukee from going bankrupt, but then also the idea of moving away from the shared revenue model into their new sort of sales tax based model, which isn't everything it's cracked up to be. Shocking, I know. To acquiring 33 plus acres here outside of town and putting in the footwork to try and make sure that this place can expand its tax base so it can maintain its future. Whether it's the school district, the local businesses down here who need more customers to keep going. I guess as an aside, have you guys talked about Blanchardville at all? Yet in the Snarkiverse?
A little bit, like,
Okay.
I mean, not like all the pressing issues going on, but I know we've mentioned like that's, kind of where we're from or from the school. We've talked about like the school and how we knew each other stuff. So cursory stuff, but I'm sure that, yeah, listeners, especially those who are not from the area, or maybe some who are, who haven't kept up with stuff, would like to hear. So yeah, we could talk about it.
Well, I'll give you my perspective and do with it what you will, but it's got a river running right through it, which is interesting, but it is dammed with a small dam that the DNR hates and would love to make go away. But the community in the early 90s spent some money to make sure it stayed, which is interesting. But it is not used to generate electricity anymore, so that's a thing. But there's a river, got fish. It's a little bit interesting in terms of, we'll say, environmental sciences, which we all partook in our time in school. And we have more than we have any right to. We have a grocery store, which is pretty weird for a small place like this. Chiropractor, we've got a dog grooming business, insurance companies, a bank, service garage, massage parlors, two, I think right now, hair salon. Did I mention the chiropractor? I can't remember. And
Yep.
also a couple different plumbing businesses and then a hardware store too, which for 800 people, how? You got all these different things here. But some of those things come and go. We lost a grocery store for almost, I think, is it 5, 6 years, something like that. So, taking things for granted is definitely not recommended, but yeah, it's a tiny little place, but yet you can do a whole parade in all of what, an hour? How long did it take us to get through that?
Oh,
Oh,
cast
like, is it
homecoming
even?
parades.
Like, is it even? Yeah, I mean, and again, there's like the Cassie and Nick like president thing, and then there's Cassie and Nick, each other's homecoming date escorts as well. That's in the history of this universe, right? Just
Yes.
remembering that as you said, homecoming parade.
Yes.
So, all the things. Yeah, I think you can get down that street in like 35 minutes if you're really trying.
Walking, by the way. Just to clarify, walking.
Say from the population sign and going up 78 to down.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could say half an hour walking. Main
Mhm.
Street's a little bit generous.
I mean, to use the term of the organization, Nick, how much community pride overall do you feel there is in Blanchardville? Because you're noting there are a lot of things that maybe other communities of that size would take for, like that's uncommon per se.
I think that there is a lot of it, maybe in the early 2000s, like when all three of us were cruising through the community, growing up in it and participating. I would say from my perspective, it's fading fast. And I don't know if that's because it's way too easy to dial into something like, well, I don't know, say Helldivers 2 or whatever catches your fancy at the time versus going out in the heat and interacting with the community. Getting to know your neighbors, like just sitting down and having a conversation with your neighbors seems to be a rare thing anymore. And yet, where else are you going to grow a sense of community? I don't know. So I would say it's a lot, but like a car rolling downhill, feels like it's on fumes. But if you're going to give it a push, maybe it'll be enough to get it up over the next hill and then to a gas station. I don't know, or a charging station, as it may be, whatever's more appropriate.
Don't even get me started on the availability of charging stations in rural communities and how important that will be as we move down the line, right? The planning for that. So that could be a whole separate podcast.
I confess, I've only sent 3 emails on that topic. Daycare is closer to 47.
There you go. There you go. How much investment from people around our generation age is there in Blanchardville, or just your sense of kind of like small rural communities in general? Like, what's your sense?
I have to limit my commentary to, I guess, official channels in that I've only been really focused on village government itself. But from that purview perspective, thinking of our volunteer services, which are just, if you're from a community that doesn't have volunteer firefighters and EMS members, like, look at your tax bill, look at it, really. Places like this are alive because of people putting in the time and effort for, and Blanchardville, I think it's $5 a fire call. Doesn't matter how long it takes, all night. Tragic situations where maybe you had someone die at the side of the road and it takes all day, $5. I don't know how long that can be maintained, but at the same time, I hear people maybe 10 years older or more saying, well, why can't we just bring it back? And I'm of the opinion, well, try it. Try it. Let's see. Let's put some events together. Let's see if people come out and participate. But we can't definitely keep going the way we are and hoping that it'll work, because based on results, it's not going to go well. So I don't know. Not a lot. A lot less than I'd hoped for.
What would you say to people who might feel a little disenfranchised? Like they don't know, like they see people like you, maybe they're like, well, he got elected to the village board, right? Like that's really awesome, but I don't know if that's for me. Like, what are your thoughts on participation of any size and like what impact that could have in a community, like a small rural community like Blanchardville?
It's massive, right? Like even just going to a meeting and asking questions, it's actually exciting. Nobody ever does it. Show up, ask questions. There's all kinds of stuff going on, and give input. If you find yourself in a smaller community in particular, they tend to not be very formal with things, and the audience can participate most of the time. So why not? Like, get in there. It's invigorating for people who've been there for a long time, and for those who are looking to maybe exit but have concerns, and maybe they've been there a long time, but they're looking for someone probably to take the reins in most cases. And it's a great way to put yourself through really like a crucible, and you're gonna get refined through it. And that's okay. It's good. It's a little uncomfortable at times, but it'll make you better. So just get started. And you maybe even able to serve on a committee. There are some committees like the police commission, for example, which is responsible for reviewing challenges, complaints, that kind of stuff. It cannot be an elected member. And maybe the fact that you don't have law enforcement background is exactly what they want. Because what is a taxpayer who's just trying to go about their life? What is their take on things? Well, that perspective could be absolutely gold in reviewing a situation. So just reach out. Clerk's a good place to start. Otherwise, just show up to a meeting. They're all public. They can't shut you out. In fact, it's illegal if they do.
What a novel concept. What a novel concept, letting people know they can't shut you out. There's a quote.
Yeah, no joke.
That's what I think I find a lot of people who maybe, let's call it disenfranchised, maybe with things on a state or definitely a federal level, a national level. Especially when it comes to terms of voting or things. And I'm like, that's fine. You can, guess what? You have to fill in every blank. You can leave things on the ballot open. But I was like, you should go do it and get involved, because at least at your local level, you should be looking at who are your local representatives. Because I said, that's the decision that's really going to affect your day to day. So even going and finding that stuff out, like you said, attending the meetings, looking into who your representatives are in your local level, and your district representatives, and like who your city folks are that are going to be making all the decisions that you mentioned, budgetary, treasure, everything like that. I tell people, I'm like, if nothing else, go learn about that stuff and know what's going on in your community, in your neighborhood. One of my former ones is three houses down from me. So when she used to be on the ballot, they'd be out there. I would just be like, oh, I'm trying to walk over and get the lawnmower. Hey, you're out with your kids. Hello. I'm gonna talk to you. Or like they still come door to door here, like the actual local people. You're not getting just canvassers, you're getting the actual candidates coming door to door to like knock on the door, talk. You can actually meet them face to face, and you can press them on things or be like, hey, what's your position on this? Or what are your plans for this? Or where do you stand on this? It's really nice, because obviously you're not going to get that on the federal level or probably even the state one. But again, you get to feel like you're more connected, because these people are going to directly make the rules and stuff around my community, local civic stuff that's really going to make a difference.
There's a lot of areas that I vehemently disagree with Tammy Baldwin on. There's also a lot of areas that I'm grateful for, and I will say that she actually listens.
Yeah.
She's a very, very good representative.
Mm.
I am not team red, nor am I team blue, but my conversations with Tammy have been fantastic. And while we might go about solving problems differently, let's use a baseball analogy. We just named the field down here. It's Jim Strummond Field now.
That's
That
right.
just happened.
That's right.
Let's use a baseball analogy. We're all on the same team, whether we want to have a blue stripe or a red stripe on our uniform. And maybe some people hold the bat differently, but we're all still trying to hit it and make progress. So Tammy's definitely one of those people who steps up to the plate and takes a swing.
What is that? Do you see, and you can answer this to whatever degree you feel comfortable, but I've always gotten the sense that there's less partisanship on the local level in local government. And this is coming from someone who used to be a local journalist in a rural community up north, right? Like, do you
Yeah.
see that translate into local government, or is that more of like a state and federal, like where partisanship really kind of rears its ugly head? I've just been curious to actually ask someone who experiences that question.
I have a theory, and the
I
theory
love
is
theories.
where you have too many people in too small of an area or too many dollars concentrated in one place, you have problems. There are no dollars at the local level. What are you going to fight about? These are the problems. Either work together and solve them or collectively fail. And for each failure that you encounter, you have another slice of your ability to self-determine and pick solutions taken away. So are you going to bicker about the way to solve the problem, or do you take a stab at it, and if it doesn't work, pivot and move to the next idea and try and tackle the problem that way? So the theory is the more dollars that go back to individual pockets, so I guess I'm probably revealing where I'm at these days. The more dollars that stay in the individual's pocket, the more firepower they have to vote with their wallet the way that they care to vote. There's too much money in government and politics. No, there's no partisan stuff really at the local level because we can't afford to.
That is so helpful. That's so helpful to hear. I like the theory because I think the theory is correct.
Hey, some people want to take their dollars and go to, I don't know, say the Sierra Club, and maybe somebody else wants to go support Cabela's or something. I'm not saying that those two things are opposed to each other, but in doing so, they are able to make a difference in the way that means the most to them. It doesn't need to be a part of this program that also comes with this requirement to make sure that those dollars are being spent a particular way. So you have to take 10% off the top. And then that's the administrative staff overseeing that funding, that program. And also then you have to keep questioning and wondering, well, are they going to renew this funding? Are they not going to renew this funding? So are they always dialed into what they're supposed to do? Probably not. And then there's not really enough money to actually accomplish the mission most of the time in all the communities that you would have liked to have. So you have this lottery process of filing for grants, and a bunch of places that maybe could have done a lot with it aren't going to get anything. Some places will, and it won't be as much as they actually needed. It just doesn't seem like this is the best way to go about this, guys. So that's where I'm at.
If you can still hear me okay, because again, technology, hashtag technology, millennial technology. I'll reveal where I'm at. This is like Cassie personally. I believe that the two most fundamental changes to changing the lives of Americans at any level are campaign finance reform, overturning
Yes,
Citizens
please.
United, and also ensuring that there is affordable, accessible healthcare for all because of the social and economic freedom that it would prompt, right? And I know there's some political considerations to that, right? But I think that has more than health considerations. But in order to even do that, like you're noting, Nick, you have to take money out of politics for anything to move, like for anything like that to even happen, right or wrong, or wherever you're at on that particular issue. Like the money trail has to be removed, right? Like where money speaks. So I appreciate you calling that out. Brittany, you're the spiciest person I know on some of these topics. What are your thoughts? Yeah, she's winking now. Like, are you sure you want me to go down that road?
The dialogue is
Um,
important. Let's hear it.
I'm talking more on the federal level as it currently stands. I think everybody behind the scenes is a lot closer than the two major teams would like to have you believe.
Hmm.
Yes.
And so I'm going, the system is not designed to have somebody come in and overturn things as it currently stands. So burn all down and start over, or, you know, get in the streets because you're going to like, you can't vote your way out of something that is currently set up to not to vehemently oppose everything that would have progress or benefit people. And that if they keep people fighting about things and keep people in bubbles so they don't talk to each other and convince people you can't talk to group B over here because they might not have 100% of the same values as you, and you have everybody arguing over that stuff, then nobody can come together to take on the people at the top controlling stuff, because there are a lot more of us than there are of the people at the top. So I want to say I'm straight anarchist. That's not correct. I don't know where I am. I'm more like, give me an issue and I'll tell you where I stand on it. But yes, I think that um yes, my little snarker stand here.
Snark alert. Snark alert.
Yeah, yeah,
Brittany might be
yeah.
the snarkiest of them all, Nick, you know? Like you
Yeah.
and I have toned down and Brittany's toned up,
I'm
like in
toned
the
up.
last 20
Like,
years, you know?
Twitter me comes out sometimes. I mean, that's why I tell people when they're like, well, I'm not voting, and I'm like, well, go to the locals. The local stuff is what you will actually notice the difference in, probably.
Thank you.
But yes, on like
Thank you.
on like a federal level, I'm like, I mean, yeah, we're just spinning the circle over and over again. So I'm like, it's gonna take some protesting or like getting in front and shaking people up and showing up to stuff. I mean, even those kinds of things, showing up to stuff and voicing things, because you know, if people think their only voice is voting on a federal level for something, that's all the engagement they need to do, that's not enough to make a change. So you have
Mm.
to go to these public hearings if people come around and have rallies or have those listening sessions where state senators will go around and do stuff, or you have to go and do it and show up at their offices and want to talk to them and say, you know, this X, Y, and Z. And you have to have constant pressure. It's fucking exhausting, to be honest. I mean,
Yep.
and it's hard because, you know, especially it keeps getting worse. Like people, it's hard to find the time to do that, or not everybody can have the time to do that, because, you know, a lot of people are focused on trying to keep a roof over their heads, feed their families, work jobs and stuff. And again, I think that's
There it
also
is.
part of why things are designed that way, so that people don't have the time or are too busy
There it
and,
is.
you know, exhausted trying to focus on the menial things, because that they have to, that's their daily stuff, that, you know, to then be like, well, you should just go to Washington and go show up at somebody's office. Cool.
They don't care.
No, they don't care. Or they're like,
I'm
cool,
sorry.
you
They
want to give
don't
me
care.
money for that? Like, and you want to take care of my kids and do my job or my second job over the weekend while I go do that? Like, by all means, step up. Sure. Like that's it's not feasible. It's hard. So I don't
Serve
know.
Yeah.
one term in Congress, get health care for life. What if you didn't have to worry about your healthcare costs? Could you spend them a little more time to go and advocate and be a community member? I imagine
Yes, Nick.
so.
Yes, Nick.
And
That's
that,
part of my argument. Thank you. Yes, you
If,
could.
if you didn't have to worry about your health care, would you be so tied to your job? And so if your job treated you
Mhm.
poorly, you could be like, well, guess what? I'm going to go find a different one and, you know, make it work. Like, yes, you don't have that power over me because I don't have to worry about my healthcare in the interim to like go get a better job. You have removed that power over the worker.
There's maybe a reason why 401ks are so tightly tied to the employer, why your medical benefits are so tied to the employer. It's quite
Mm-hmm.
unnerving if a person takes the time to look at how things are set up.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of charging forward, whether you're blue or red today, stop and remember that if you go far enough, you end up in the same place, and it's not good. Instead, take the time to try, see where you're at, and find some middle ground, really. And the middle ground is get busy at the local level. There's a reason that the local governments have been gutted so much. It's because that's where you actually start to make the changes. Changes like, for us, EMS. The state legislature decided to add into the county's statutes that they can just set up an EMS service and tax for it. Well, that's interesting. What, you know, like we already have an EMS service here. EMS, by the way, is emergency medical services. So the people who are in ambulance that are going to try and stabilize you. It used to be that they're trying to get you to the hospital. By the way, that's not necessarily the case anymore. They're trying to treat them like field doctors more because they don't want you in the hospital because they don't have to deal with you if they don't have to. So super disturbing, not cool, especially really tough in rural environments, but here we are. State legislature just said, go do it. Okay, great. So again, as a community, people are strapped. I have folks living in a couple different streets right there on nothing but Social Security. And on the one hand, their water bills are doubling because all of a sudden Blanchardville is responsible for treating phosphorus in the river, which is primarily due to nitrate runoff. Now they have to pay twice for any emergency medical service, one of which they're never going to use in our particular case. How does that make sense? Like, there's no thought about it. And so it becomes this very top-down, awkward experience. And the way that it was solved here, we ended up settling outside of court, thankfully, but a coalition of 13 different communities came together and said, hey, how about no? How about we not do that? That would be great. And so we couldn't quite get to where we wanted to. That's what settlement is, right? You meet in the middle, you talk it out, figure it out. And so maybe perhaps coming out of that, we are going to still have a county service that does still tap our pocketbooks, but maybe it's focused on improving communication infrastructure, doing standards drills for, unfortunately, the world that we live in. I thought Columbine would be like a one and done, but here we are. What a stupid, ignorant thought that was. Mass casualty situations. And so there is some, I hate to admit it, there's some value provided at the county level to have that there, but you know, the way a person in a group goes about doing things does matter. And so back to that person who feels disenfranchised, but yeah, start in your city, start in your town, start in your village. It matters.
Nick, did you see like it doesn't have to be the specific case of EMS, but did you see like more engagement from community members when those things were being proposed, when like there was more news coming out about that? Some, but like I'm just curious, kind of, was there a little bit of a disjunct, right? Like you would think that would motivate. So I didn't track on it because I don't live there anymore, but I did know a little bit about it. So what did you see in terms of engagement levels when things like that arise?
What I saw is people went to the county board and complained. Like there was a decent amount of people that went and did that. You know what that did? Nothing. It made the meetings a little longer. But the people who came back and encouraged their, I don't know, their village, their townships to put together a joint resolution saying, no, this isn't appropriate. We support, in this case, we took the lead, right? Blanchardville saying, no, we have a notice of claim. We are going to sue you if you do this. So let's try and that's where people started to pay attention. And that would not have happened if folks in, say, like Hazel Green, for example, wouldn't have shown up to their village board meeting and encouraged them to join Blanchardville. Not the county. The county's already made up its mind. It's at that very local government that you need to get involved.
So you'd like to see more people come to meetings, period, even if it's just to listen. So listen, provide some feedback, like participate. So I wrote a letter to the editor when the local newspaper editor retired in Blanchardville that was giving Gary credit for all of the meetings, countless, because a little bit of appreciation because we had solidarity in that of like knowing what that is like. But you know, part of my argument is like, you need to go. Because if your local newspaper changes and you don't have access to that information through the newspaper, you should do it anyway. But if that changes because Gary is no longer there all the time and trying to provide you the information, you need to go. Because it is a public sphere that you can participate in and you should, right? So I'm appreciative of the encouragement to like actually go to a public space that is yours as a constituent.
There it is. It's yours. That's what makes it special. You live in that community. Your vote, your voice in that community is 1,000 times, literally 1,000 times more powerful than at the federal level. You want to make a difference? Recognize the size of the dish that you're in. Community, small? Yeah, absolutely. Your participation makes a huge difference. And newspapers for a brief moment. As a digital tech type person, holy moly, they matter. Buy your paper, read it, keep it.
Yes.
You need it. We would not have been able to do some of the maneuvering that we did with EMS, except that the village board actually, Blanchardville still has its original ordinances, by the way, which is wild. Like the book from 1900 that's like falling apart. It's all
Oh, that's
there.
cool.
It's wild.
That's really
Alvin
cool.
Blanchard's handwritings in it and whatnot. Anywho, because the ordinances were published in the paper, we were able to take the 1929 statutes and, well, not statutes, they're ordinances, and republish those as a charter ordinance today. And so we used our home rule powers to say, no, this is what an EMS service is in Blanchardville. And in Blanchardville, that's the law, like not the statute, not the state. Using our home rule, what we published is what it is. And we only got to do that because we had a newspaper at the time. And so the Blade is what I still call it. It's not that anymore. It's the Peck Valley
Yeah, I
Leader.
still call it the Blade. Yeah, I know.
You know, that, yeah, it's $1.25 an article, but it matters. If that goes away, Blanchardville's at the whim of, say, the Republican Journal in Darlington choosing to publish something. They don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah,
And if they don't,
the allegory is great, Nick, right? Between your argument for local government participation and your participation in buying and supporting your local newspapers to sustain your community. So you can come back for when we talk about local rural community journalism. How about that? Maybe we'll get Gary on here and we'll just talk about all of it. But there's
that'd be
no,
wild.
like, it's intermixed. There's no, like, it's a civic service, period. You know, it's a
And the
fiber of a
meetings,
community.
sometimes meetings are fast. And other times, like the other night, they don't get done till 8:30 at night. Just depends. And by the way, even when it goes super long, if it's because people showed up and are asking questions, that's actually kind of nice. Although at the same token, don't be too mad when if the whoever's running the meeting is like, okay, cool, we got to keep moving, guys.
Okay, keep it chugging along. Keep it chugging along.
Yeah.
Yeah. My husband and I have experience covering up north here in Jackson County from long ago, but like, 4.5 hour long village board meetings in different communities. So, they can run the gamut depending on what you have going on. So I have to admit, and Brittany, I geek out about our podcast, but like I have to admit I'm really super inspired by the insights you're providing, Nick, and that's no joke. Like that is sincere appreciation for what you do and like your involvement, because we call ourselves millennials in this podcast, but we're not trying to be ageist. But I think it's really important that people like you, who have the energy and the vigor and clearly the intelligence and historical context and knowledge to be a good leader, participate, so like, thank you for what you're doing.
I'm humbled by that. I appreciate, like I said, you guys inviting me on here. I think doing the podcast is a service unto itself as well, because it's about dialogue. When people get so confident in not necessarily holding on to particular values, because it's easy sometimes to confuse a value with maybe what a person might assume as like facts. Like that's such a weird thing to say, but it seems like that's reality today. Well, I value this, therefore everything like it must be true. That's not really how it goes, guys. Having a dialogue and having people who had maybe started out in very different places come and talk about their experiences is how we heal and fix this thing. And it's not one conversation, it's thousands.
Love it. Okay, so the snarkiest of them all, Brittany, do you have any questions for Nick before we go to the always standard last section of the podcast?
No, I think you covered it very well. I mean, good mix of touching on personal stuff and kind of just giving your overall perspective. I admit I just came out of a job where I've worked two of my last three jobs were related to working with EMS and hospitals around the state. And one of my last projects was like working on pediatric readiness for EMS and rural hospitals around the state. And so, yes, knowing the struggles that rural services are going through, whether it's EMS, childcare, whatever, and then hearing about it from somebody who's in that on the government level, I found fascinating. So no, I thought we covered a great gamut of things, and I think the listeners will be very inspired, almost the readers, but maybe they'll read the transcript. Podcasts give you the option now. So
Yeah, I'll just be the black square today. So again, apologies, but like I am like a mysterious like Oz black square
just a
for this
being.
particular and that yeah, like I'm just an aura like for this episode, really. But so this is what we always do. We always go to the last quick round robin. We ask each other what we're reading, if in case we have time for that in our lives that we're all the craziness we're doing. We talk about goals, large or small, that we might have for current or future, and the dumbest excuse our language shit or anything that you've seen in the news that you'd like to touch on. Anything of the sort you can bring up. Large, small, crazy, normal, not normal, whatever. So Brittany, what are you reading? Have you finished anything since we last talked?
I finished a couple rom-com books. I had to go for something lighter to break things up. And
Yeah.
I've decided to move on to something even lighter, which is it's a two novel part or series, I should say, by journalist Whitney Webb on all the links between Epstein and all the government blackmail. So just something nice and light.
Oh, just super light coffee table reading for a light
It's
evening.
called Blackmail, Blackmail by
Right.
Webb. It's a two-part series on the connections to Mossad and all the different
Super light.
larger things around pedophilia. Yeah, just a nice light summer love reading. Yeah, just nice bedtime stuff to wind me down.
Yeah, just wind you down. Just like some super light Epstein reading. I like it. So I'm still reading. This is as usual because I'm a bad reader. I'm an ambitious reader. Like I want to read. I'm almost done, like I said the last two times, with Your Money or Your Life, Debt Collection in American Medicine. Nick, this is part of my soapbox topic of my life. So I love reading about how debt collection and medical debt has changed over time. Not love in a positive way, like love in a make me angry sort of way. And then Medicare for All, a Citizen's Guide. I'm about halfway through that now. And I am going to do some light or fourth wing reading for a little change of fiction pace whenever I get done with those aforementioned two. So, Nick, do you have time to read in your busy life as husband, father, village president, IT employee, all the things?
To my 7 and 5-year-old, I actually just finished The Hobbit recently. No joke.
Oh, love it.
It took a while though, because Adeline kept falling asleep. But that's sort of the intent, right? Like,
Yeah.
So yes, at bedtime we do try and read. Usually it's like kid stories, but I was like, let's just see. And it took about a month, but yeah, we got through it. And they loved it. I may have edited some parts as I was reading, which is actually really difficult. But we made it a little more, even more child friendly, we'll say.
Love it.
Unsolicited observation on the Epstein
Yeah.
book and the connections and stuff. Even the people who run our blackout CIA prison ships in international waters usually have family or related to somebody. So if you want to make changes, be good to your family members. Yeah. They're less likely to go into that sort of stuff.
And your family are less likely to become pedophile traffickers. Is that the moral of this story?
There's a surprisingly large amount of it in Wisconsin.
Oh yeah. I had this, sorry, Cassie, we're gonna indulge. I had an argument, but
never apologize for your snark. It's the name of the pod. Like it's the name of the pod. Like that's what it's for.
I had to go off screen. Well, no, I started doing a side chat with somebody, one of my other coworkers, because we were on a Teams like coffee chat thing with our team. We're all virtual, like a couple months ago, and one was saying in Minnesota, like it must all be a liar. They just make it up. Like there's no, it's child trafficking is not a big problem there. And I was like, oh boy, holy moly. Oh, I've got some things to share with you then. I've got some links for you. And so I was having a side chat because another one of my coworkers likes to just instigate things. And I was like, ask her who killed JFK. Ask her this, ask her, just going down the thing. I was like, ask her why they put the stuff in all the convention center, like bathroom stalls and the airport stalls if it's all a lie, like all this. But I was like, oh, it's a big problem everywhere. No, you're just because it's tech, there's a lot going on everywhere. Like, holy moly. And maybe because we don't want to think about it because it's bad and dark. But I was like, oh no, sorry. Minnesota's not immune to that. Sorry. Like just unfortunately, yeah, that's a podcast for a different day, but it's horrifying.
Minnesota Nice doesn't go that far.
No,
Unfortunately.
Midwest, no, God, no. No.
Mm-mm.
It
Mm-mm.
was like,
Nick, do you read anything of your own, like for your own? Like, not that reading to your children isn't like the most important thing in the world, but do you ever have time to like read a book that is for you?
the unedited
I-
parts of The Hobbit.
I don't think about it a whole lot because it is somewhat depressing. No, I spend a lot of time reading statutes and
That's fair.
to make the most of the time that I got left. No joke. So
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. See? Yeah, like that's why I got
because I
I
know I'm
gotta
not
go to
running
something
again.
lighter. Oh, did we
No,
hear
I'm
it
not,
first,
I'm not
folks?
running again.
Did we
So
hear it first, folks? Did we get it? Like
yeah.
hot off the press? Okay. All right. Good.
Maybe Marsha. We're probably second to Marsha, although maybe Marsha will listen to this and learn it for the first time. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a
No,
Blast it through the house.
she knew.
that's a
It's
conversation we may have just ruined.
two people. So God, yeah. Spouses, right? Like family, super critical supports.
Yeah.
All the things that get done, there's probably somebody back home dealing with all kinds of shenanigans. So it is a joint effort for sure. And it will be a joint conclusion to that chapter.
Love it. Oh my gosh, you guys have always been so sweet, dang it. Like let's get sappy here toward the end. So adorbs.
Love is to like each other, but you always love each other.
That's a quote. That's a quote that I need to mark down. I'll just mark that down to remember for perpetuity. So goals. Brittany, you know I'm always about goals. I'm gonna be drinking a bunch of water with my husband the next week for reasons that may include a standard colonoscopy medical procedure, like in the next week, right? So in solidarity, we will be drinking a lot of water over the next week. I'm just gonna put that out there. So with you two, do you have any goals, large, small, or otherwise sized, that you're working on that you'd like to share?
I don't know how I'm supposed to live up to that shit, pun intended.
Woo, look at you.
Oh goodness. I mean, yeah, I always need to drink more water. I'm gonna try journaling again, I think, a little bit.
I like that.
See if that really happens like before bed. When I get too bored with the Epstein book. Need a break from it. But we'll see. We'll see if I want to put my thoughts to paper.
And then we'll
Maybe
see
burn.
how serious Nick is, right? Like, here we go.
Yeah.
Brittany's gonna
Yeah,
journal,
that's
I'm gonna
good.
drink water, and like Nick's gonna change the world. What have you got, Nick?
Yeah.
Oh shit. You asked the question. Try my best to not, I'm going to say mess up. I had another term. Balancing my desire to play something like Helldivers 2 with trying to be a decent dad, husband, and also trying to help not just my community, but also like state and businesses recognize that we are at a point where your knowledge, institutional knowledge about how you run your business and do onboarding and that kind of stuff. This is the last time you're going to have someone who actually worked from the ground up to get to where they are, because of just how effective generative AI has become at things like predicting what indicators are most likely to make a sale in whatever area, not just from sales, IT, the whole gamut. So recognize the times are changing, capitalize on it in a way that keeps humanity at the forefront, but also takes advantage of the fact that this is here, because otherwise we're all going to be like Kodak pretending the digital film doesn't matter.
Okay, this is my official invite for you to come back to talk to AI since you breached the topic, because I am
Yeah.
super spicy about AI. So we should honestly do a whole pod on AI and get some people on here, including you, to talk about it. For real.
You know, yeah, there's a lot of different facets. AI in tech, AI in scripting, AI in
Mhm.
interpersonal communication.
Mhm.
Yeah, let's do it. AI at
Let's
the
do it.
state. What should we legislate before we
Oh,
wait for a disaster and then decide to react to it? Like, what if we got proactive
oh,
for once? Kind of a wild
oh.
concept.
This is what I do. That's why I had to come off, like, get on camera. This is what I do when I think about AI, is this. Okay. So that's my very professional view on AI. All right. So I say dumbest shit in the news.
Oh God.
So I'm gonna try to be super PC. I didn't see any dumb. Well, I saw a lot of dumb shit last week because we're recording this the week after the debate, friends. But I did get a selfie with Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont on Saturday in La Crosse. And it was a highlight for me because I've always wanted to at least meet the guy in person before he dies. So I did it. So that's my highlight. I'm going to keep it positive. Doesn't matter the politics. It's just I've always wanted to meet him. And I did it because he was right here near me. So all that other crap aside, I accomplished something positive in my mind, politics wise, in the last week. How about you guys?
Do
I'll
I
do
have to?
something, I guess. I'll make it
Okay,
fun.
thanks.
I may have missed it because I don't have a lot of time to look at the news, but I don't remember seeing anybody making the joke about Hovda showing up and saying, or Hovda, or whatever the hell his last name is, about people in nursing homes not able to vote. I mean, like, what better Florida man headline opportunity like is going to present itself? Is right there. Florida man says nursing home people can't vote. Like, hello. I didn't see the joke,
Perfect.
and I'm sad about it.
Perfect. Thank you for bringing that up. I love it.
Although I love my cousins down in Florida, you guys are awesome, but you are definitely also a great source of news and memes.
It is. I think it is. I think you could argue that is the state where the best memes come from. Um, Brittany, what do you got? What do you
Happens when
got
you
for me,
That's
my
what
dear
happens when
friend?
you live on top of a swamp. I have family there too. They're very dear to me, but I'm like, oh God, I couldn't even retire there. Bless you
Can't
all.
do it.
Okay. Do I have to be positive or not?
You can do whatever you want.
I could do both.
Whatever you want.
I guess I can do both. I can do a positive, which is it wasn't a full win, but being able to see Julian Assange go home and be home for his birthday, which is today. Last week was nice because we don't often get wins in activism, and that's a win, even though now it becomes pardoning and arguing that journalism is not a crime, which ended up being the thing that they basically charged him with. But yeah, that was good.
Thought of you when I saw the Julian Assange news, Brittany. So congrats.
Now we turn to, I mean, not that we weren't turning to things, but there's a lot of other political prisoners, a lot of other things going on. So the fight never stops, but it's nice to get somewhat of a win there. Stupid would be because we've had, this comes in the form of anything when there are any sort of holidays or months of stuff. And I know
Oh, yeah.
comedians have done various bits on this, all John Oliver, John Stewart, whatnot. But all of the, let's call them corporations who feel the need to really tell you, like, yeah, they're in on it too. Like they support MLK Jr. Like, yeah, they're all about Juneteenth or Pride Month or whatever. And I'm like, I don't, just
Yeah.
calm it down. Like like, good God, you're benefiting from stop, just stop. Or let's say organization scene post on social media, some of which would be on my resume from the past, like that try to tie stuff in and like only talk about part of their work. And I'm like, so fascinating. You're talking about all your equity and inclusion and diversity, and then you only focus on the one thing, like, or your favorite thing. Like, oh boy, we could do a little, oh boy, we could do a little bit better. Like
Brittany,
the reason's weird. I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic and spicy.
you are spicy. That's the whole name of the podcast. That's the point of the end of the podcast, is the
Just
snark.
poor communication skills when it comes to relating a holiday to tying it into things that you do when you do very important work, and like having a very poor ability to tie that in, like Flag Day, for example. So,
Yeah,
just kind of watch it and I'm like,
it's awkward.
we could do better. We could do
It's
better.
awkward.
We could do
It's
better.
awkward. Or we could just not do it too. That
We
would
could
be
do
a
better
thing. If
in
you don't
terms
have
of
something to
like,
say, you don't
right,
need
we
to
just
say it. You
have the
know?
freedom to do it, of course, but I'm like, I don't really care that Cracker Jacks supports whatever, like, presidents.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right?
Cool. What? Or
Yeah.
I will say too, sorry, we're gonna end on a spicy thing then. I do, terms Martin Luther King Jr. Day, I do take the opportunity every year when the FBI tweets about it to then retweet them, as do millions of other people, and say, great, why did you kill him then? And I'm only on some lists. So yes, Nick, Twitter me is a lot different than the other versions of me on
Yeah,
other
there's
in
Facebook
person.
Brittany,
There's
there's podcast Brittany, and then there's Twitter Brittany, which
Twitter
like
Brittany's-
rips open the band-aid even further from what you've just witnessed and heard. So,
Mark, you guys remember Mark, right? The Tubinator.
of course.
We legitimately hung up our calls with a sign off of FUNSA for like 6 months after Snowden left. Not even kidding.
how many times have we been talking, Cassie? And I'm like,
I'm on a
man,
list too.
this is great fodder, Cassie, for whoever's in the break room at the NSA who had to listen to this bit and then go on. Like, hello, everybody. Hello, my favorite spy. How are you doing tonight? Like, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I have to assume though that unfortunately a decent chunk of our veterans are on a list anyway. So
You make a fair point. You
Mhm.
make a fair point.
Mhm.
Yeah, Brittany's reading list definitely like what she checks out from the library definitely gives her away. So, you know, she gives no F's about what she checks out from the library. So, you know,
I am on
yeah,
lists.
she don't care. She
Or
don't
the
care.
no, God no. I'm trying
They
to
don't
educate
care.
myself. It's called learning, okay?
Oh, it's called
If you're
learning.
not getting put on a list, are you really learning? There's my
It's
t-shirt.
called learning.
If you are put on at least one federal watch list, are you even existing? Are you doing your civic duty?
So what's going to be really fun is running this through like the YouTube upload. That's like, do you have any copyright infringements? Do you have anything that they flagged, right? Like I always wonder like what little like mice behind the scenes are like, we determine what's okay to publish. I'm kidding. It's fine. She's been spicy before. It'll be fine again.
I know things that they will flag. I've seen people get stuff taken down for talking about things. So yeah, no, I'm careful. But sometimes it's just a word. It's fine. We'll try. I'm trying to dance the line. It's my line. It's kind of my kind of line dancing. Where's the line? Where's the censorship line?
Cheers. Look at her with that mug. All right. So, okay, Brittany, you know, like when we did the first episode, I got all like sappy and emotional and weird. I feel like I'm getting back to the sappy and emotional and borderline weird about how much I love this episode. So thank you for doing this, Nick. This has been amazing.
Thank you for the invitation.
Seriously, this is great. I love and I think there are so many takeaways, but I was taking notes, right? But get in and dig in, do whatever you think you can, right? Like it doesn't matter the size. I love that message because I feel like people think things are way too overwhelming these days. And I think you're showing that it doesn't have to be. So thank you. That's great. Thumbs up. All right. So you'll get some stuff in the mail from us. Help us share on Facebook, Instagram, get us going. Share with your friends and your circles about how you came on this podcast because we want to share this message with a bunch of people. Do you have any parting thoughts before we go?
Keep doing this. I think it's important. I think helping remind folks to just have conversations. That's how we fix this thing.
Have conversations. All right, Brittany. And with that note, you know how we always do. I wish you both a wonderful evening. And can you give us your ever classic sign off?
I just want to say to everybody, have a good day. And remember, always bring your logic to a dumb fight.
See you soon, Snarkers. Bye.
Bye.